There's a restaurant in Manila, the neighborhood, not the city, where I found out I wasn't anybody's boyfriend. Month 2 of my first stay in Medellín. I'd been seeing a woman named Manuela for about 7 weeks. Consistent. 3, 4 times a week. Her place, my place, dinners, a weekend out at Guadalupe. In Denver, that's a relationship. You don't have to say anything. It just becomes true by accumulation. We're eating, and she mentions, the way you'd mention a dentist appointment, that she has a date on Thursday. Not a confession, a calendar item. And I did the thing. The American thing? I got quiet, I got wounded. I let the silence do the work, because where I'm from, silence is a legal instrument. She just looked confused. Not guilty. Confused. And then she asked me a question I've thought about probably 1,000 times since. ¿Cuándo me pediste? When did you ask me? I hadn't. It had never once occurred to me that asking was a thing a person did. I thought exclusivity was something that happened to you if you showed up enough times. I wasn't being cheated on. I was being illiterate. I'm Luke. I've spent the last 7 years moving between cities in Latin America, and about 18 months of that in Medellín, across 4 separate stays. By the end of this video, you'll know the 8 rules that everyone in that city runs on, and nobody says out loud. The ones I ended up paying for one at a time. If you're considering doing something similar, or you just want to know what it's actually like, please subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Let me start with what I got wrong before I ever met her. I came to Medellín the first time in early 2019 for the same reason you're thinking about it. Somebody told me it was easy. That's the word. Easy. It's in every video, every forum thread, every conversation on a rooftop in some other city with a guy who's been, and I want to be precise here, because easy isn't a lie. It's a translation error. Somebody translated something real into the only word they had for it, and the word was wrong, and now 40,000 men a year are booking flights based on a bad translation. I landed in January and did exactly what you're going to do. Furnished 1 bedroom in Provenza. $1,400 a month, which in 2019 was absurd money for that city, and I had no idea. Rooftop pool. Doorman named Edison, who was nicer to me than I deserved. 90 seconds from Parque Lares. I could walk out my door at 11 at night, and 4 people would speak English to me before I got a drink in my hand. And it was easy. For about 6 weeks, it was the easiest thing that had ever happened to me, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, because if I lie about that part, nothing else I tell you is going to land. Here's what I didn't understand. I hadn't moved to Medellín. I'd moved to the part of Medellín that exists for me. That's the first rule. And it's the one everything else sits on top of. Where you sleep decides who you meet. That's not a lifestyle preference. That's a sorting algorithm, and it runs on you whether you know about it or not. Provenza and the blocks around Lares are not a neighborhood. They're an interface. It's the layer of the city built to handle foreigners, staffed by people who are good at handling foreigners, priced for people who don't know what things cost. Everyone in it is competent and most of them are pleasant, and none of it is a scam. It's just that if you live inside the interface, you will only ever meet the people whose job, formally or informally, is the interface. I moved to Laureless on my second stay. $650 a month, unfurnished, 2nd floor, no pool, no doorman, a bakery downstairs that opened at 6, and a neighbor who ran a leaf blower like it owed him money. My dating life did not get better. It got completely different. Different women, different conversations, different questions on a first date. In Provenza, the first question was, where are you from? In Laurelis, the first question was, what are you doing here? And those are not the same question. And the second one is the one that actually decides things. By my 4th stay, I was in Envigado, which is technically its own municipality, and functionally another planet. With families, parks, old men playing Tejo, nobody looking at me twice. It cost me 40 minutes of traffic to see friends, and it was worth every minute. And I should say what happened to the numbers, because it matters, and because you're going to land in a different city than the one I landed in. That 1,400 in Provenza in 2019 was me getting taken. Today that same apartment is 2,000, 2,200, and the guy paying it thinks he's getting a deal because he's comparing it to Austin. The whole strip repriced itself around men who are comparing it to Austin. My 650 in Laureless would be closer to 1,000 now, maybe 1,100, and the good buildings have started putting their listings in English, which tells you everything about where that's going. That repricing isn't just a number, it changed the temperature. There are neighborhoods in that city where locals have watched their rent double because of men who look exactly like me, and some of them are fine with it, and some of them are not, and you will occasionally meet the second kind, and you should not be surprised or offended when you do. You're not a tourist there. You're a variable in somebody's housing cost. I'm not telling you to move to Envigado. I'm telling you that when you pick your neighborhood, you are pre-selecting your entire experience of that city and calling it fate. Guys go home after 3 months in Provenza and write a whole thesis about Colombia. They didn't go to Colombia, they went to a very good hotel with a city painted on the windows. Which brings me to the second rule, and this one took me almost a year to even see, because you can't see it, you have to be told. Estrato. It's a number from 1 to 6. Officially, it's a utility billing classification. The government rates your building on physical characteristics, and if you're a 1 or a 2, you get subsidized electricity, and if you're a 5 or a 6, you pay a surcharge that subsidizes the 1s and 2s. That is the entire legal function of it. That's it. That is not what it is. It's a number people use about themselves. Out loud, casually. Somebody will say, "Ella es estrato 6," at a table, and nobody flinches, because it isn't an insult and it isn't a boast. It's a compression algorithm. It carries school, English, whether she's been to Miami, what her parents do, what her Saturday is supposed to look like, what her family will think of you, whether her friends will read you as interesting or read you as a project. And here's what matters for you. You cannot read it. Everyone else in that room reads it in half a second, off her accent, off a neighborhood name, off the way she pronounces certain words, off her posture in a certain kind of restaurant. You're reading, pretty girl, nice dress, good energy. You are operating on maybe 11% of the available information. And the dangerous part isn't the missing 90%. The dangerous part is that you don't experience it as missing. You feel fully informed. You'll make confident decisions with almost no data, and they'll feel exactly as confident as your decisions in Denver felt. I'm not going to tell you what to do with Estrato, because there's nothing to do with it, and anybody who builds a strategy on it is a person you shouldn't take advice from. I'm telling you it exists so that you'll stop trusting your read. Your read is not a read. It's a guess in a nice outfit. That was the whole first year, honestly. Me guessing, and the city being far too polite to correct me. So let's go back to Manila, and Manuela, and the question. The third rule, nothing is exclusive until somebody says it out loud, and saying it out loud is an event. There's a whole vocabulary for this, and I didn't have a word of it. You're saliendo, going out. That's a state. It can last months. It can involve everything you'd assume a relationship involves. It is not a relationship. Then at some point, somebody arranges it, sets it, and I'll come back to that word, because it's the most important word in the city. And then, separately, there's formalizar, making it formal. Novio, novia. That's a declared status, not an emergent one. In the US, the default runs one direction. Consistency implies exclusivity. And if you want to be non-exclusive, you have to say so. In Medellín, it runs the other direction. Nothing implies anything. If you want exclusivity, you ask. And the asking is a real thing with a real answer. And it's slightly formal in a way that felt ridiculous to me the first time I did it, standing there like a man in a period drama. I want to be careful here because there's a version of this rule that ends with a guy saying Colombian women are all X, and that guy is wrong and also boring. This isn't a fact about women, it's a fact about a default setting. American men bring a default with them, they never say it out loud because in their country you don't have to, and then they get hurt by a woman who followed her default perfectly and never knew his existed. Nobody lied to me, I never asked. I just assumed the machine was running my software. And for the record, I did ask her. 2 weeks later, badly, in Spanish that I'd rehearsed in the shower like a man preparing for a deposition. And she said no. Not because of Thursday. But because in the 2 weeks between the restaurant and the question, I had been visibly weird, checking my phone, going cold, doing the wounded thing, running an American passive aggression campaign against a woman who had done nothing to me and had no idea it was happening. She hadn't disqualified me for seeing someone else. She'd disqualified me for how I handled finding out, which was, in her words, como un niño, like a child. That's the part I'd tell my younger self. The rule didn't cost me anything. Not knowing the rule didn't cost me anything either. What cost me was reacting to a rule I hadn't learned as though I'd been betrayed. The ignorance is forgivable and everyone expects it. The indignation is not, and everyone notices. Rule 4, and this one cuts both ways, which is why guys get it backwards in both directions. The family shows up early, and it is not a promotion. Week 3 of my second stay, a woman I'd been out with maybe 4 times invited me to Sunday lunch. Envigado, her aunt's house, 14 people, a table you could land a plane on, 3 generations, a grandmother who asked me my intentions in a tone that was 90% joke. I drove home doing math. Week 3 and I'm meeting the family? In Denver, meeting the family is month 8. Meeting the family is a milestone. I'd cleared a milestone in 21 days. I had cleared nothing. It was Sunday. Sunday lunch happens whether or not I'm there. She'd have brought a coworker. She'd have brought a woman from her gym. The table expands. That's the entire content of the event, and I'd read a contract into it. Now the other side, which is the expensive side. 7 months into the relationship that cost me the most money I've ever lost, I had never met her mother. Not once. Not a cousin, not a sister, nothing. And I built a lovely story about it. She's private, she's independent, she keeps things separate, she's not like the others. In a city where a woman will bring a guy she's known 19 days to a table with 14 relatives at it, 7 months of nobody was not privacy. It was information. It was, in fact, the clearest information I received the entire time, delivered every single Sunday for 7 months, and I filed it under, "She's just private," because that story cost me nothing, and the other story would have cost me everything I'd already put in. So, don't read the family as a milestone. Read the absence of family as a fact. Presence means very little. Absence means quite a lot. That asymmetry is the actual rule, and it's the opposite of what your gut says on both ends. Rule 5 is the one I get the most angry comments about, and I understand why, and I'm going to say it anyway. If you're only dating in English, you didn't choose her. The language chose her for you. Around month 6 of my cumulative time there, I did something stupid and useful. I made a list. Every woman I'd been out with more than twice. Then I looked at it. Every single one spoke fluent English. And for about 10 seconds I thought that was a fact about me. Like I had somehow attracted the English speakers through personal magnetism. It's not a fact about you, it's a filter. And it's brutally simple. Fluent English in Medellín in that age range means, roughly, one of 3 things. Private school and money. Or a call center and a lot of hours. Or, and this is the one nobody wants to hear, a lot of practice with foreigners. That's not a moral judgment. There's nothing wrong with any of those 3. But if you only date in English, you have narrowed the entire city down to the subset of women with the most reps against guys exactly like you. They've run this play. They know the script, the arc, the timeline, the way it ends. They know what month you start talking about visas and what month you stop. You are a first-time player at a table of people who've been playing since 2011, and you think you're winning because you're the one with the chips. Later I dated a woman for a couple of months who spoke 0 English. Not a little, 0, and it was hard. It was slow and clumsy and I was, conversationally, a large child. I lost every argument because I didn't have the vocabulary to have one. There was no coasting on being charming because I wasn't charming in Spanish. I was, at best, comprehensible. It was also the first time I felt like I was actually in Colombia. My Spanish went from restaurant Spanish to real Spanish in about 4 months, and I'll tell you plainly, that single change did more to my experience of that city than the neighborhood, the money, the gym, the apartment, all of it combined. Not because it unlocked anything, because it took away the interface. When you can only talk to the people who came to talk to foreigners, you will only ever meet people who came to talk to foreigners. I want to know, how many of you watching this are seriously thinking about doing something similar? Drop the city you're thinking about in the comments. I read all of them. Alright, Catalina. Rule 6. The ledger writes itself in the first month, and then you live in it. I met Catalina on my second stay, in Laureles, and it lasted 7 months, and I've talked about it before but never about the part that actually matters, which isn't the money. It's the mechanism. Here's what everyone assumes happened. A woman ran a con on a naive gringo. That's the story people want, because it's clean, and it has a villain, and it means it couldn't happen to them because they'd spot the villain. That's not what happened. What happened is worse, because it's structural, and structures don't look like anything while they're forming. Week 1, I paid for dinner. Obviously. $30. I make 80 grand a year working 4 hours a day from a laptop, and $30 is a rounding error to me, and it is real money to a woman making 2.5 million pesos a month. That's not exploitation, that's arithmetic. Anyone who tells you to split that check evenly is doing a kind of math that's technically fair and functionally insane. Week 2, same. Week 3, same. And that's it. That's the moment. Nobody decided anything. Nobody negotiated. By week 3, a structure existed where I was the payer, and it existed permanently, and it was never discussed once in 7 months, because it never had to be. It had already set. Like concrete. Nobody pours concrete and then has a meeting about whether it's going to be hard. Month 2, her phone broke. I replaced it. $400 and I felt great. I felt like a man who solves a problem with a swipe, and I want to be honest that the feeling was the actual product I bought. The phone was incidental. I paid $400 for 11 seconds of feeling like somebody's answer. Month 3, rent trouble. I covered it, once. Month 4, a cousin with a business idea, small number. Then a less small number. Month 5, a medical thing with her mother that may have been completely real. That's the part I want you to sit with. It may have been entirely, sincerely real. I will never know. I have no way to ever know. And I never will. And that permanent not knowing is the actual tax, not the money. The money's gone and I don't care about the money. It's that I lost the ability to ever know what any of it was, including the parts that were probably true, including, honestly, whether she liked me. Month 7, I sat down and added it up. Just over $14,000, on top of rent, on top of everything. And here's the thing that reorganized my head. I could not find a single lie, not one. Nobody had ever told me an untruth that I could point to. There was no con, there was a slope, and I'd been standing on it since week 3, and the slope did all the work. I didn't get scammed, I got structured. Now, what I watch other foreigners do, and there are 2 errors, and they look like opposites, and they're the same error. Error 1 is the Provenza guy who thinks generosity is a strategy. He's not being generous, he's bidding. And everyone at the table can tell, including the waiter, including her friends, including her. Generosity that's expecting something isn't generosity. It's an invoice with better manners, and there is no woman anywhere on earth who can't feel an invoice. Error 2 is the guy who got burned once and rebuilt his entire personality around never being burned again. Now he's the cheapest, most suspicious man in Antioquia, splitting a $9 check to the peso to test her, treating every woman as a suspect in a crime that hasn't happened, telling you at the bar that they're all the same, which is the single clearest confession that a man has learned nothing. He thinks he's the opposite of Guy 1. He's Guy 1 with a different face. Both men have turned a person into a transaction and are now just arguing about the price. The fix isn't don't pay. The fix is decide in week 1, on purpose, at a level you'd be fine holding forever, and then hold it without flinching or renegotiating. If $60 dinners are nothing to you, buy the dinners, buy them cheerfully, and stop thinking about it. But a wire transfer is a different species. The first wire converts you from a man into a resource, and I have never once seen anyone convert back. Not once, not in 7 years, not in any city. There's no emergency worth that conversion. There will be an emergency. It might even be real. Don't. So, what does it actually take? Rule 7, and this one I'd put above all the others in terms of pure daily usefulness, because it doesn't just apply to dating. It applies to landlords, contractors, friends, business, everything. Listen to the reschedule, not the excuse. Colombia, Paisa culture especially, is a conflict-averse culture with genuinely beautiful manners. Nobody is going to tell you no in a register you can hear. Nobody is going to make a scene. They will not fight you. That sounds pleasant, and it is the single most disorienting thing about living there as an American, because we're from a place where no is a word you say. Here's the whole decoder, and it fits in 4 lines. No puedo el jueves. Nothing. That's just information. Thursday's bad. No puedo el jueves el sábado? You're completely fine. She moved it. That's a yes, with a scheduling conflict. No puedo el jueves. Que pena. Después cuadramos. You're done. She's out. That was the end, and it already happened. Cuadramos. We'll arrange it. We'll sort it out. The most beautiful word in the Colombian language, and it means absolutely nothing, and I mean that with real affection. It's how a culture with too much grace to humiliate you says no while letting you keep your dignity. She's not lying to you. She's being kind to you in a frequency you can't pick up. And Americans hear, "we'll sort it out," as a yes, because structurally, it is a yes. It's got a future tense in it, so the guy waits. He texts Tuesday. He texts the next Tuesday. He builds a whole theory about mixed signals. There were no mixed signals. There was one clear signal, delivered politely, and he doesn't have the ears. Learn this, and I promise you it'll save you 6 months. The absence of a specific alternative is the answer. Every time. If nobody has proposed a real day, there is no day. Which brings me to the last one. Rule 8. This is the one that took me a year and a half, and it's the one that actually changed how I move. You think you're being evaluated on what you have. You're being evaluated on whether you'll be here in March. Guys arrive convinced they're the prize. Dollars, passport, options. They've read that the exchange rate is a personality. Here's what I finally understood somewhere around month 12. The woman across the table has seen this movie. She has a friend who dated a Canadian for 5 months, and then he flew home and posted a carousel about growth. She has a cousin who moved to Miami with a guy, and it fell apart, and she came back and doesn't talk about it. That city has been metabolizing foreign men since before you heard of it. It is not new. You are not new. So when she's assessing you, the money is a minor variable, because she has already watched money get on a plane. The major variable is, does this man exist in April? And once you see that, the whole board flips. The women who move fastest on you are often the ones who've correctly priced you as temporary and are optimizing for a temporary thing, which is completely rational and honestly more honest than what most of us are doing. And the ones who move slowly, who make you wait, who don't introduce you to anyone for 2 months, who seem distant, a lot of them aren't playing a game. They're doing due diligence on a flight risk, because you are one. Statistically, you are exactly one. So if you want the thing you claim you want, you have to become legible as a person who stays. And you can't say it. Saying it is worthless. Everybody says it. You do it with things that only a person who stays would do. A 12-month lease instead of a month-to-month with a rooftop pool. A gym where nobody speaks English. A Spanish class you actually attend at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday when you'd rather not. Friendships with men who are not foreigners, that one alone will change more than anything, and almost nobody does it. And I didn't do it for my entire first year. A life that does not fit in a suitcase. One more tactical thing, because it's the mechanic that enforces all of this and nobody warns you about it. Medellín is enormous, and the relevant social graph is tiny. 2.5 million people, and about 400 that matter to your life, and they all know each other. The women talk. There are group chats you will never see that contain your full name, your building, your behavior, and a screenshot. I've watched a guy get quietly closed out of an entire social circle in about 9 days and never once find out why, and he's still out there somewhere telling people the city changed on him. It didn't change. He got reviewed. So conduct yourself like everything is on the record, because it is. Not out of fear, out of accuracy. The only men I know who've built something real down there are the ones who behaved the same way in month 1 as month 20, because they weren't performing for a market they thought was anonymous. There is no anonymous. There's a small town wearing a metro system. And here's the uncomfortable part I'd rather not say. Most guys who go don't want that. They want the first 6 weeks. They want the interface. And there is nothing wrong with wanting that. And I've wanted it. And I've had it. And I'd be a liar to sit here and tell you it isn't a good 6 weeks. But no, that's the thing you're buying. Because the women can see it from across the room. And the ones who can't see it, those aren't the ones you should feel lucky about. Those are the ones you should worry about. Because a person who can't read you is a person who's about to get hurt. And half the time in this thing, the person who gets hurt is her. The man who does well in Medellín isn't the one with the most money, or the best Spanish, or the best jawline. It's the one who arrived assuming he was illiterate, and spent 6 months reading before he tried to write anything. Here's the thing about all 8 of these. They're one rule wearing 8 outfits. The neighborhood that sorts you, the number you can't read, the exclusivity that never happened, the Sunday lunch that meant nothing, and the 7 Sundays of nothing that meant everything. The English that chose for you, the ledger that poured itself in week 3, the quadrangos that was a no, the evaluation you didn't know you were failing. Every single one is the same thing. Medellín will not correct you. That's it. That's the whole video. It's a city with genuinely beautiful manners, and beautiful manners mean that nobody, not the woman, not her friends, not the landlord, not Edison the doorman who watched me be an idiot for 4 months straight and said nothing but Buenas Don Luke. Nobody is going to tell you that you're wrong. The city hands you a false positive and then lets you hold on to it for as long as you want, indefinitely, forever if you like. Denver would have told me. Denver would have told me on day 4, loudly, in a parking lot. Medellín let me be wrong for 11 months and brought me a coffee while I did it. So Medellín isn't easy. Medellín is polite. Those are not the same thing. And a polite city will let you be wrong for a very, very long time. If you got something from this, hit subscribe. I'm in a different city every few months, and the next few videos cover the cost breakdown of actually living there full time and what the last 3 years of the nomad wave did to the prices and to how locals see us. See you on the road.